On behalf of LAGBAC, Chicago's LGBTQ Bar Association, welcome.
We are excited that you are able to join us today.
Check out our new logo and name change. We hope you find it to be more inclusive of the diverse population we serve.
In 1987, when the Lesbian and Gay Bar Association of Chicago was formed, it was revolutionary at the time, and one of the only bar associations in the country that acknowledged sexual orientation in its name.
But our understanding of community has evolved, and LAGBAC wants to make sure we are inclusive of the many sexual orientations and gender identities that make up our great organization.
That is why, from this point forward, we will be known as LAGBAC, Chicago's LGBTQ Bar Association.
A little change, that means a lot.
LAGBAC has also launched a new website. Please visit us at lagbac.org.
We hope you find our website more user-friendly.
We are excited to use this technology to connect better with our community, all of our community.
My name is Moses Suarez. I am the LAGBAC president, and I am proud to stand with LAGBAC to celebrate our diversity.
My name is Matthew Janish. I am the LAGBAC treasurer, and I am proud to stand with LAGBAC to promote equality.
My name is Adam Zevlin. I am the LAGBAC vice president, and I'm proud to stand with LAGBAC in its efforts to become more inclusive.
My name is Vincent Rizzo. I am the LAGBAC secretary, and I am proud to stand with LAGBAC to encourage equity.
My name is Juliana Martinez, and I am the LAGBAC historian, and I stand with LAGBAC to promote integrity.
My name is Nisha Dotson. I am the LAGBAC social media and technology chair, and I am proud to stand with LAGBAC in its vision to be more welcoming.
LAGBAC, Chicago's LGBTQ Bar Association, thanks its many members, supporters, and allies. We hope you like our new logo, our new name change and website, and we encourage you to take advantage of and participate in our many networking, educational, and mentorship opportunities. Check us out at lagbac.org.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Judicial Diversity, a discussion with America's 4 transgender judges. Pardon me. I apologize for that. I am Judge Levander Smith Jr., and I have the honor of moderating this historic event. I am so excited about this, and without any further ado, what I am going to do is introduce the judges now briefly, and I'll just ask each judge to raise their hand as I introduce their names. The Honorable Phyllis Randolph Fry, Judge, City of Houston Municipal Courts. In 2010, Judge Fry was appointed by Mayor Parker and sworn in as the first out transgender judge in the nation as a City of Houston Associate Municipal Judge. Thank you, Judge Fry. And the Honorable Victoria Kolakowski, Judge, Alameda County Superior Court. Judge Kolakowski became the first openly transgender trial court judge of general jurisdiction when she was elected in Alameda County, California in 2010. Honorable Tracy Najaya, Commissioner, Maricopa County Superior Court. Commissioner Tracy Najaya is the only known transgender judicial officer in Arizona, and when appointed in 2018, became the 3rd transgender judicial officer in the country. And my friend and colleague here, right in Cook County, the Honorable Jill Rose Quinn, Judge, Circuit Court of Cook County. Judge Quinn is the first openly transgender elected official in the state of Illinois and is the 4th openly transgender judge in the United States. Welcome, all of you judicial officers, judges. Thank you. All right. Let's get to the questions. First, Judge Quinn, please tell us a bit about your legal background before the bench.
So I started out doing exactly what I wanted to do from the minute I entered law school, and that is I became a general practitioner. And I did all kinds of law, and I represented people in neighborhoods, just like neighborhoods like everybody lives in. And I did a variety of different legal stuff. I worked in bankruptcy, real estate. I did criminal law, probate law, all the kinds of things, all the problems that people faced. I worked for law firms for 14 years, and then I went out on my own in 1997 and opened my own practice.
Thank you, Judge Najea.
Yes. All right. Make sure I'm unmuted. All right. So when I got out of law school, the first job that I got, legal job at a law firm, was doing plaintiff personal injury law. I did that for about 5 years until I finally landed at a firm that I absolutely loved. And for the past 21 years or so before I got appointed to the bench, I was litigating complex insurance coverage matters. So that was basically my bread and butter for the past 21 years is doing insurance coverage litigation.
Thank you. Judge Kolakowski.
Okay, I transitioned in my last semester in law school, which was a lot of fun. And I went on to become an intellectual property attorney. I point that out just because it presented numerous challenges in practicing in my field. I was an intellectual property attorney. Later, in a law firm, solo, in-house, became general counsel of a publicly traded company. I worked as a senior regulatory attorney for the state of California. And then I spent 5 years as an administrative law judge before I was elected.
Okay. Excuse me. And Judge Fry?
Yes, in 6 weeks, I will be a lawyer for 40 years. And most of that time I spent doing criminal defense for indigent clients in the felony and misdemeanor courts, mostly in Harris County. And I also spent a lot of time taking transgender people through the civil courts for documents and birth certificate amendments during the early part of when that was done. And a lot of people today around the country use the forms and the theories that I developed. My main claim to fame is I began the Transgender Law Conference in 1992. And that is what led up to our community's legal birth.
Well, thank you, Judge Fry. Let's go on to question number 2. When did you decide you wanted to be a judge and why? Let's start. Judge Fry, you want to lead us off with that?
Well, being a judge never was in my bailiwick. I was recruited by the mayor, and that was it. Sorry.
All righty. Judge Kolakowski?
Yeah, in about 2007, I was approached by some attorneys in San Francisco about the idea of possibly running. I was already an administrative law judge, but running for a Superior Court judge position in San Francisco, where I did not live. You don't have to live in the county where you serve in California. And they wanted me actually to challenge an incumbent. And I said, no, I wouldn't challenge an incumbent. And I thought that I did think that the idea of me being a judge was a great idea. I just felt like it should be where I lived. And so, I ran in 2008 and got stomped. And then I ran in 2010 and I won.
Oh, okay. Judge Najea?
Yeah, my interest in becoming a judge really was tied to my transition and I won't get into too much, but basically my whole life, I had always dreamed of what it would be like to live as my authentic self even if it was just for one day, what that would feel like and how I would want to make sure that every single minute of that day counted. And ultimately, when I did my transition and went through all that, now I'm living that life every single day. And I still wanted to make that same commitment, was what could I do with my legal background, my education, my experience to make a difference every single day? What could I possibly do? And that's what led me to think that maybe it would be to help change my community. So that's what pushed me to become a judge.
Thank you. And Judge Quinn?
So I always wanted to be a judge my whole life, and I always wanted to be in a position where I could help people enforce their rights, and that's what led me to be a lawyer. But I never thought I'd be able to be a judge because I was transgender. And when I transitioned, I thought, well, okay, no one's going to elect a transgender judge. And then I met Phyllis Fry. And Phyllis Fry told me that I had to be a judge. There were only 2 openly transgender judges at the time, and that we needed to be visible. And I had to get out of stealth mode. We needed to be visible. We had to show people who we are. And so I started applying to be an associate judge. Someone said I didn't get on the list to become an associate judge. Someone called me up at some point and said, do you want to try to run for circuit judge? I ran the first time on a small scale and I lost. And I ran it the second time on a much bigger scale and I won. And that's how.
Great. Okay. Who did we not? Did we get everybody? I think so for the second question. Let's move on to the third question. What was your path to the bench? And did you face any challenges based on your gender identity? Let's start with Judge Nahea.
All right. So my position with the court is not a political position. I didn't have to run for it. It is in Maricopa County where I'm at. All judicial officers have to go through a merit selection process where the positions come open, we apply for them. In my case, there was about 60 to 70 applicants. There is a panel, a merit selection panel that goes through all of those applications and narrows it down to about a pool of 12 people that they interview. You go through a vetting process where, opposing counsel, they look at all of your more significant cases that you've handled. And then once you go through that interview process, they narrow it down from 12 to about half of that. And then that list gets sent up to our presiding judge, and our presiding judge interviews those 6 people and decides who ends up getting appointed or not getting appointed. And it's literally as positions become available. So it was truly just a complete merit selection process for me.
Okay, thank you. Judge Quinn?
Well, as I said, I ran once. I ran in a race where I didn't have much of a chance, but I told myself I was going to win. And then during that race, there was a candidate who ran for office for the Republican nomination for governor. And she put out a really nasty commercial about trans people, about people of color, about immigrants. And I saw this commercial and I knew that I wasn't in her race, and I knew that I was in a relatively obscure race, but I said to myself, this has to be answered. And I worked with my political director. We put together a brief response where we challenged this politician. And I said, politicians should seek to unite people, not divide them. And while I lost that first campaign on the strength of that commercial, people paid some attention to me. And so when the time came to look for circuit court judges, I had some support. I had a political director. And then, as you know, Van, in Cook County, when you want to run for judge, you have to get the approval of the committeemen in all the wards and the townships surrounding Cook County. So we went through the process of meeting everybody. I told everybody, the first thing I said was, I'm the first openly transgender judicial candidate in the state of Illinois. The Democratic Party needs me because the Democratic Party is the party of inclusion. And if you don't have me, then you're not the party of inclusion. That seemed to work, and I got the support of the party for the election, and that was and as you know, I did all
The
the
rest is history.
handshaking. I met everybody. I won every ward in the city and every township in the county, and I ran opposed in the election, and that's how I got here.
Okay. And Judge Fry.
Well, my original career was military. Military officer, Army officer, and I was honorably discharged in 1972 as they ran me out because they learned that I wanted to be a woman. So I began to use my 2 engineering degrees and practice engineering in Houston, and was pretty successful for a while until I started transitioning. And the engineering community back then, probably still now, was so conservative that I not only was fired, but I was blackballed from the entire engineering community. So I told my wife that we would use my GI Bill and go to law school. I transitioned and went full-time in 1976. I went through law school, and Vicki, what you said about law school is true. I fought the Christian Legal Society all 3 years I was there, and ended up putting them on campus-wide probation. So that was a small victory. I hung out my shingle in 1981. No law firm, not even the few out gay law firms in Houston, would hire me. So it was a real struggle for about 5 or 6 years. And slowly I began to get clients, and I started getting appointments from judges to represent indigent clients. I also got involved in the Lesbian Softball League, which is where I met Anise Parker, and we became good political friends. And I was very political in Harris County with the political caucus, the LGBT political caucus. And then come 2010, after the mayor got elected, I was approached and asked if I wanted to be a judge. And I said, yes, if I can be a part-time judge, because I want to continue to maintain my law firm. And so that's the way it is. And I was just appointed to my 6th 2-year term. I will say the very first time that I was going to be approved by city council, the mayor appoints, council approves. I was told that there were 2 council members who were going to do some delaying tactics, and the mayor told them that if they did, that they would be short shrift on some of their projects in the coming months. So it went very smoothly.
Good. Thank you. Judge Kalikowski?
Sure. Now, first of all, I said that I was elected, and judicial elections in California are nonpartisan. And as a matter of fact, in our ballot statements that go out that go out, we can't mention political affiliations. And so, although we can get endorsed by political groups, and so we all seek the endorsements of political groups, but we are not like running as they do in Chicago or New York, where you run as a Democrat or a Republican. Here we all run as nonpartisan position. And I had been involved in politics here locally for many, many years, and which is one of the reasons I went for an elective route. Also because of the fact that I was not a litigator, and that basically any other options kind of would be closed off. Now, I had been serving as an administrative law judge and as a neutral, and for several years, and it was something that one of the reasons I ran for the position was that I want to be clear about this. Before, when we were going through, Tracy gave this wonderful explanation about how, and Jill about how they wanted to make such a difference and all. Part of the reason that I ran for this was because I wanted to see I wanted the people in the system to see people like me with something like this behind me. Mm-hmm. Because for those of us who are in the trans community, and I've been working on although I was, an intellectual property attorney and a corporate attorney and a utility regulatory attorney, I still on the side did a lot of work on behalf of the LGBT community, and I was the co-chair of the board of the Transgender Law Center when I was elected, and I went to Phyllis's conference, ICLIP, in Houston, which is everybody who was anybody who was a trans lawyer in the 90s had to go through Houston. Not that we all wanted to go to Houston, mind you, but we all had to go to Houston because that was the center of the action. But I felt it was really important that the way that we get perceived. If you haven't, by the way, seen the documentary Disclosure that's playing on Netflix, you really must, about the way the trans people are represented in the media and in popular culture. We are represented either as victims or as sex workers or somehow being outside the law. And the idea that we could be intelligent professionals was something that I wanted them to see. I wanted cops to come into court and see a trans person that they weren't arresting on the street or that they weren't finding their body. And and this was really important. And I mentioned that on my website, and but one page, there's like one little section. I have the website has all these little pages on it, one section on it, and that's the part that got attention from the national media. It's like, wow, she's gonna have a whole section about being transgender. It's like, I have a page. I also had a page about my background as an attorney, a page about my biography, a page of my endorsements, a page of all these other things. But the people wanted to make a big deal out of it, and I was fine with that to some extent. And it's what I wanted also was, I didn't know that Phyllis was going to get appointed, and what I wanted to make sure of was that we had people who were out there, and it was really important that we had the two of us, because we were people who, what I did not want to have happen was for somebody who did not know anything about the trans community to, for example, be a judge and transition on the bench. And everybody would turn to them and say, what is it like? And they would not know anything. And that part always frustrates me. And I didn't want somebody who was going to shy away. It was going to be trans, but would never talk to anybody in the group. And if they were invited to speak, never would, because I felt that it was important that trailblazers need to be able to be role models and to be out there. And that's something that Phyllis has always been. And I don't want to say she's always been out there, but she's been always, in the public, and this group that you see here are all people who aren't shy about being clear about who we are. And so that was a big part of what my campaign. I ran into my opponents were very nice about it. I live in a very, very, in about as liberal, progressive a place as you possibly can. But I can tell you that there was some talk behind the scenes. People were like, not my opponents, but some of their supporters are like, she's not really a woman, and all this other stuff. And, it's, and this notion that I'm the diversity candidate and I had no, I get treated like, well, you're the trans candidate. And so you're not an experienced attorney like, this DA is, you're just, you're the diversity candidate. And it's like, well, actually, I have as much experience as an attorney, just different experience, but a lot of experience, and as a neutral on the bench as an administrative law judge. And so, but it's very easy for us to be discounted by other people as not being as serious because we're different that way.
Thank you, Judge Kolakowski. And you probably will get some more questions about that documentary that you mentioned. Speaking of questions, I want to advise everyone, all the attendees, that there is a question answer section of this presentation that we hope to get to. It will be handled by one of my fellow LAGBAC board members, Matthew Janish. But I wanted to also advise you that those questions can be submitted in the Q&A portion of your screen. We are not using the chat function this evening, okay? It's been disabled, is my understanding. So I just wanted to point that out, all right? Let's go on to the next question. On the bench, have you faced any struggles on account of your gender identity? On account of your gender identity. Judge Kolakowski, I think you were starting to kind of touch on this, so I'll start with you.
Here's what I'll say about that, which is, in some ways, I think that it is, what happens is I think that for those of us who are on the bench, the way that we get treated varies depending upon how people perceive us. And people have certain perceptions about different groups of people. And it's hard, by the way, for women on the bench, just because if you're nice, then you're too soft. And if you're not nice, then you're being a B. And figuring out how to navigate that level of how to be, one or the other, all of us have to deal with, I think, gender stereotypes about being trans, about being anything that we are, that if you are not if you do not meet the picture of what people have in their minds of what a judge is, which is probably a 60-year-old white man who's a former prosecutor or something. In any way, when you differ from that, navigating that can sometimes be hard. And we just in California, I just want to say, we just went through a series of monthly discussions about different minority different minority judge groups with other judges, talking about our people's experience as Latina judges, as Asian American judges, as Black judges, and we all had similar kind of problems, I think, of about how we have to deal with the way that other people perceive us, and I think that's I do think that colors the way that we get viewed. At least I think that I think that I get graded on a different scale than some other people do, and that's okay and not okay. It's reality. It's the way our society is.
Thank you. Judge Fry, your struggles on the bench, if any?
I had no struggles on the bench once I got there. But you got to remember, I've been pretty much an out political fixture in Harris County for decades. I know when I was first appointed, some of the conservative religious enemies of Mayor Parker tried to use me as a way to get to her. And I was called by a lot of conservative radio talk shows and a few conservative television shows to debate these fools. And I kept telling the producers that would call me, I said, you got to understand, because they were saying I wasn't qualified. This is traffic court. I've been doing felonies for almost 30 years. I said, yeah, I am qualified, and I'm not going to give these people airtime. Now, when I'm actually on the bench, because it's traffic court, there's a lot of police officers that come through. And I know at first, the first couple of years, they were very surprised to see me and to see the way I comported myself from the bench. And, my fellow judges in the municipal court, they embraced me immediately. The judges in Harris County embraced me immediately because I've been practicing in their courts for 25 plus years beforehand. So, no, personally, I had no problems while I was on the bench.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Judge Quinn?
Before I answer that question, I just want to underscore and underline and italicize something that Judge Fry said. Judge Fry was an out transgender attorney in Harris County, Texas in the late 70s and early 80s. And at the time, to just put that into context for all you youngsters out there, at the time, the only transgender figure of any note in the popular culture was Renee Richards, who was constantly accused of cheating because she wanted to play tennis with other women. So, if Judge Fry didn't have any struggles on the bench, it's because she really earned the right not to have any struggles on the bench by being out and out gutsy. been on the bench since the end of December. I have not really experienced any friction from anybody so far. I have introduced in my courtroom, I start my call off by telling people my pronouns. I invite them to tell me what pronouns they would like me to use to address them. So I make sure that that's right out there, because I'm there to show I'm there to show people that they can be here too, and I'm there to show people that this is an inclusive court. And then while I've been in court, I encountered one trans attorney who came up to me afterwards and said, "Thank you to me for being where I am." To which my answer is, "Thank you for being where you are," because we've all got to be out here and we all got to be visible, and we've all got to show people that we're here and we're fine.
Thank you very much. Judge Najee?
So I have a very unusual assignment as a judge. My assignment is for initial appearances. My courtroom is in a jail. Where I'm at, I see every single demographic that you can possibly imagine. And I'm talking social, economic, race, gender, religion, you name it. They come through my courtroom within 24 hours of being arrested. And I had to learn very early on how to conduct and get control over my courtroom, because when I see people, they're usually in the same state of mind, wearing the same clothing as they did when they allegedly committed their offense and booked into jail. I can tell you this, that from my experience, when I have treated people with dignity and respect in my courtroom, they have reciprocated in very large part. Every once in a while, in my last 3 years, I will say maybe on one hand, I can count the times that somebody had some type of a verbal outbreak, and because they were not happy, they were frustrated with the decision that I made to keep them in custody, and they went for the lowest common denominator attack, and that was to mention my gender identity. It has happened very, very infrequently. And usually I just chalk that up to the fact that, you know what, this is their worst day of their life, and not everybody has the same coping skills given their background. And the fact is they don't know how to express their anger or their frustration. And sometimes they take it out on the person that just gave them their bad news, and they don't know any other way other than to hit them below the belt. It has never bothered me. I've never held it against anybody. I've never snapped back at anybody. I just dismiss them and get on to the next case. But I've been very lucky that I have, given my very unique assignment, that I've really not had much of a bad experience at all.
Thank you, Judge Najee.
Levander, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
I've been given a lot of praise by my sisters, and I thank them for that. There's no way I could have done what I did or begun to do what I did when I did without my wife. We were together for 48 years, and she stood with me during my transition. She stood with me when there were laws in the city that made cross-dressing illegal and me subject to arrest. She was with me through everything that I did. And when I had to make decisions, I always ran them by her. I lost her this past September.
I'm so sorry.
If you want to know more about me, the easiest thing to do is to Google my name. It's nothing special. You've got my name in front of you. Just Google it. You'll find the New York Times article. You'll find the Wikipedia. You'll find a whole bunch of stuff. And if you scroll down about 10 of them, you'll see the legacy of Trish Fry, my wife. And the Houston Chronicle did a page and a half on her about a week after she passed. She was the bravest person I ever knew.
Thank you, Judge Fry, for sharing that with us. And please accept my condolences. Okay. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next question. I'm going to start with you, Judge Najea. Do you feel that your presence on the bench has positively affected the judiciary in which you sit? And if so, how? What we're getting at is why diversity and inclusion is important on the bench.
So I think that I got appointed at just about the right time for this particular issue. So the short answer is yes. I think that I have made a positive impact. First off, all of my colleagues, all of the staff that I work with have been nothing but supportive ever since I was appointed. I did get several of my colleagues did reach out to me. They had questions that they wanted to ask. Many of them had not necessarily met anybody that had been trans before. They had questions, they wanted to learn and be good allies and be good colleagues to me. It wasn't shortly after I got appointed that the court started looking to me to weigh in or consult on various issues that would help the transgender community with the court in terms of coming up with procedures and guidelines to educate the people in my county on how they can get their name changed, their driver's license changed, how to apply for their birth certificate to get changed, things like that. So I've been able to help with that. I've been approached by the Maricopa County Sheriff, Probation Department, various other agencies to find ways that maybe the court and those other agencies could be more responsive and more welcoming to the trans community. So I don't know if any of that necessarily would have happened as fast if I hadn't been appointed, but I think I was just, it was ready. It was the right time and it just happened to be me. And I'm grateful for all of those opportunities. I mean, we have come a long way in just 3 years with a lot of changes that we've made.
Thank you. Judge Kalikowski.
Yeah, one of the things that really I did not know going in as a judge, one of the things that was kind of a nice little surprise actually, is just how much of the work of the judicial branch here in California, at least, is done through our educational arms and through our various committee structures that deal with policies and with how we function. And I've had an opportunity to be active in judicial education around transgender issues, which is something that I never would have thought was possible. I didn't even know there was such a thing before I became a judge. I didn't realize how much in our state we had of judicial education. I've since done 2 podcasts and been part of a panel discussion that our branch puts on and have worked with them on creating things like vignettes and ethical programs about how to deal with people who are non-binary in the courts, things like that, that are opportunities that I'm not sure that I even knew would have been available, but I'm really glad that I was able to bring. I also work on a lot of access to justice issues. And I think that this is one of the ways which one of the questions on the Q&A was about how's my experience as a trans person informed the way I approach being a judge. And part of that has been the fact that I understand the importance of being left out of the system. I've represented people who are trans before. I know what it's like to be not treated as a full human being, which is often the case with people in our community, as is the case with a lot of other people in a lot of other communities. And I think that that's important. I think that that by us being just where we are, just by being ourselves and being present, I think that for many, that helps to humanize us to our colleagues and to the people that we interact with. And I think that that's an important role that we have too. I think that it's important that diversity, including trans people, but all types of diversity are really important, because I think that the public will have greater faith in us if we look like the community, and if the community feels like people like them are part of the group that makes decisions about their lives, these important things about us. By the way, one of the things that to me was most important about becoming a judge was, and why I'm so glad that I was elected by my community here is the majority of people in this county believed that I was capable enough and that I was intelligent enough and that was compassionate enough that I could make important decisions dealing with their lives, their livelihoods, their businesses, their children, their whole lives. These are the things that we get entrusted with as judge. And for those of you who don't know, as trans people, we're often treated like we are. Many people think that honestly we're nuts. They think that we are mentally disordered. And the fact that the people of my community entrusted me with this role, knowing who I was, over another very well qualified candidate, I think speaks a lot. And I think that was an important message for our community to see. And so that's my answer to the question.
Thank
and
you.
I think that we lose Jill.
Momentarily, it seems.
Okay.
But we'll go to Judge Fry at this point. Judge Fry, you have a response about the positive effect of you being on the judiciary?
Yes, but before I get to that, the positive effect of me being out as a transgender felony litigator, in the early days when I transitioned, I found that in the basement cafeteria where all of us defense lawyers hung out and shared notes and tried to share tips and stuff like that, even though it was not at all segregated, I found that I was welcomed at the tables of attorneys that were mostly Black. And one day, after a couple of weeks, that doesn't mean I wasn't welcome to other tables, but I've always felt more welcome and more comfortable there. And finally, one of my friends said, "You know why you get along so well with all of us, your Black sisters and brothers?" And I said, "Okay, why?" And she says, "Well, because people don't judge us by our education or our abilities or our personalities. They judge us by the way we look. And people don't judge you by your education or your abilities or your personality. They judge you solely on the way you look." And since that day, I felt a really strong kinship with the Black community. As far as being a judge, as a municipal judge, I really affect the judges around the state of Texas, because every year we have to take 16 hours of judicial training, and it's held around the state. But I get to meet a lot of judges from very small towns, rural areas where a lot of transgender people live in fear. And because it's usually traffic court, they get into court from time to time. And the first couple of years that I went, I was stared at a lot. I got a lot of body language, but you know me, I know this is being recorded, but I have to say this, I didn't give a shit about that. I was just me. And then after that, several years, people really got to know me, and I was even invited to do one of the webinars on, suppose the defendant that comes before you on the bench is transgendered, how do you handle it? And I heard that it was one of the best attended webinars that they did. So I feel pretty good about that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Judge Fry. Judge Quinn, do you feel your presence on the bench has positively affected the judiciary in which you sit, and how? So we're getting at diversity, inclusion, and how that's important on the bench, basically.
So I don't know if anyone noticed, but I disappeared for a few minutes and I had to reconnect. And that period of time that I disappeared was how I felt most of my life in terms of my connection to the judiciary and the legal system, because no one really cared about me. And I was not welcome at the table. So I made my seat at the table. I put down my own dish and brought my own silverware. The no one is free until anybody is free, until everybody is free, and that's how government is. And unless we're a diverse system, then if we're not inclusive, if we're not a diverse system, we're not a legitimate system. I think I've been welcomed by everyone in government and the judiciary, and I've been, the various judicial organizations have been very receptive to me, and I think that as soon as they figure I learn what I'm supposed to do, I'll be doing a lot more with them and for them. But my presence on the bench is important for everybody out there, every transgender kid who's out there wondering whether or not his life matters, and every parent of every trans kid who wants to know when their kid's going to get out of the basement and get a job. Because the more we are visible, the more we are present, the more we are seen, the more accepted we are. If I had experiences as a community organizer. In fact, I was in Phyllis's neck of the woods in Houston, 79 to 80, and I worked on organizing neighborhoods. And we organized on a citywide basis, and I would be organizing neighborhoods with poor white people, poor Black people, poor Mexican people. And when I talked to them separately, they would all complain about the other ethnic groups. But as soon as I got them into a room at a table where they could talk, it was all, Mr. Jones that, and Mr. Gomez that, this. When people get to know you, when people get a sense of your person, then that's when we'll have acceptance, and that's when we'll have freedom for everybody.
Thank you, Judge Quinn. Appreciate that. Look, we're running a little short on time. We're almost at 6:50, but what I'd like to get from each judge in closing is one piece of advice that you have for our attorneys and judges in terms of how they might respectfully address the transgender litigants in court. We want to make sure, of course, as judges, that everyone feels as though they're getting due process and they're treated with respect, which was mentioned earlier in the discussion. And we want that extended to all litigants. So what one piece of advice would you provide, Judge Fry?
Well, if you don't know, ask. If you're sitting on the bench and you don't know if your client is trans or not, you don't know what pronouns to use, you don't know what, just ask, just say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm trying to do what's right by you. I'm trying to be as professional as I can. What do I call you? Do I call you sir or ma'am? What name would you prefer? Would you prefer a name different from what's on your docket sheet? And I can take care of that. That's all you have to do, is just show basic respect. Tell them you're a fool and you don't really know exactly how to handle this, but you're trying. Be sincere. It's like when people ask me what my pronouns are, they always say, do you use she, her, and hers? And I say, no, my pronouns are Judge and Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge Fry. Judge Quinn?
Well, as I said before, I introduce myself and I give my pronouns in court before I start. I think that one of the things judges do or are supposed to do are talk to everybody as individuals and be respectful to everybody. And I think that helps. I think Judge Fry is correct. If you don't know, ask. And I would go so far. I mean, I've heard of people who had trans clients in their courtroom and their attorneys weren't addressing them respectfully. And they addressed the attorney and say, hey, listen, have you talked to your client? Do you know how your client wants to be addressed? But the basis is respect. Ask people if you don't know, and be polite and smile, and remember, it's about them. It's not about your experience.
Thank you very much, Judge Quinn. And Judge Najee?
Yeah, I agree. In my court, first of all, I will never admonish anybody for making an honest mistake that they are willing to correct. But it is simple, and I do it all of the time. When people come before my court, there are some people who have not yet had their name changed on their documents. And of course, I'm looking at a male name, but a female. Look at it, it's just as simple for me too, as being a trans person, is just asking them, how do you want me to address you? I've had people that have asked me to address them by a completely different first name in court. I have no problem with that. Seriously, it's just like Phyllis said, just ask what people prefer, and how do they want to be addressed. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, Judge Najea. Judge Kolakowski.
Okay, I'm not going to be contrarian here. I'm going to add to this, however, which is implicit in all this question about you asking questions. This is one of the things that I teach to judges, is that you can ask questions, but you do it politely in treating people with respect and dignity. You can ask questions, but do not pry. We have what I call the tweet rule, which is that if you cannot explain how the question you're asking has anything to do with what you're going to be doing in the courtroom with this person in the space of a tweet, like a couple of sentences, how that's relevant, don't ask. That's what Google's for. If you have all these questions about, the trans experience, there's lots of material out there. This poor person who just appeared in front of you is not there to talk to you about why they live the life the way they do, and the things that they have to do in order to live their lives honestly and true to themselves. And so sometimes this comes up, like in family law areas or things like that, where they want to start prying into people's motivations, and it's less like, no, that's not relevant here to what you're trying to do. How is it relevant to ask some of these questions other than your pronouns? A lot of the other things that people would ask are probably, what I wear under my clothes is my own darn business, for example. And I don't care how much you're looking at me and trying to figure that out.
Thank you so very much. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry for being a little contrarian there.
Oh, no.
Everything's going along with it. Pronouns good, prying bad.
Thank you very much, all of you, your honors. It is a pleasure. It is definitely an honor for me to be in the same company as you, let alone to moderate this event. And I, at this point, will turn our remaining minutes over to Matthew Janis, who is a fellow LAGBAC board member, and he will conduct the Q&A. Thank you again, judges.
Thank you, Judge Smith. Your honors, it's so great to be here at this historic event. Thank you so much on behalf of LAGBAC, Chicago's LGBTQ Bar Association, for being here. I just wanted to go through a couple quick questions that we received from our audience members. And how I'll do it is I'll throw it to one of the judges, and if anybody else wants to chime in, that's great. Otherwise, I've kind of picked some questions for each of you. So we'll start with Judge Najea. What is the best advice for a not yet out transgender person to find out when it's the right time to live as their true self in the legal world?
Wow, that is a great question, and probably could spend 90 minutes each of us on that question. I can tell you that when practicing law in Phoenix, Arizona for 25 years, most of those years I was not out. I just transitioned towards the end of my career, and I can tell you, I felt like I was the only one out there. And I had no idea when was the right time, how was the right way to do it? Am I going to get fired from my firm, even though I was a partner there? Am I going to lose all my clients? And you know what? I just searched out and I found out that I was not the only one. There was actually another trans lawyer in my community, and I sat down with them and I talked to them about their specific challenges that they went through and all that. So I don't know if there's ever a particularly right time, but you've got to understand that when you do that, it might not always go as you hoped. It worked out for me pretty well. But it is a challenge, and it is a highly personal one that I don't think it's easily answered, but it is individual for everybody.
It is personal. I don't have a lot of patience with that. I came out in 76 and I took a lot of shit in 76 and I survived it. And if I could come out in 76 and survive, it's 2021. Get over it. Come out of the closet.
So Judge Fry, I guess my next question for you was, do you recommend that a student disclose that they are LGBTQ plus on their cover letters for summer employment, and with the caveat that this individual says they've applied to several places with a cover letter saying they're LGBTQ plus, and they only got one call back, but when they drafted a second cover letter and left LGBTQ plus off that letter, they got a lot more calls?
Well, you know, if you want to go to work for a firm where you have to stay in the closet, that's your business. Closets aren't fun. Continuing to stay in closets aren't fun. I just don't have a good answer for that.
I do want to add something, which is one of the things that's always hard about anything about disclosure for us about ourselves is if you say something about it, they say, why are you bringing it up? Why are you being on our face about it? And if you don't say anything about it, they say, why are you hiding it? And so it's one of those things where you just have to figure out how to negotiate it. Now, there's some people who may think that if you mention it in the cover letter, that means you're going to come in and be some sort of an activist. You might be like Phyllis. Somebody who's very passionate about expressing their views, and they may want somebody who's they're okay with them being gay. They just would prefer that they not be gay quite so loud. And so it's hard to figure out sometimes the best way to navigate that.
And I will say this too. Learn and educate yourself on who you're applying to, because I will tell you, there are a number of law firms out there who are looking for a very diverse people to work for them, lawyers to work for them. I know I've given presentations to some of those law firms, and they have specifically asked me, what can we do to better recruit to the LGBT community? We want to be more diverse. So I'm just telling you, know who you're writing the letter to, do your research, and look for those firms that will be affirming of your identity.
Well, and thank you all for being such great, pioneers and role models for all of us. I think that, it's a common phrase to say, sometimes hard things are hard, right? It's just like, that doesn't mean they're not worth, shooting for. Judge Quinn, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I just wanted to say that I campaigned telling the story of a college professor who explained that at the most important character in Hamlet is Polonius, who's a fool. I mean, a regular fool with a hat with the bells and everything. And Polonius says this. He says, "This above all, to thine own self be true." And if you can't be true to yourself, you're going to have a hard life. You're going to have a hard time. I transitioned when it was clear to me that I could not live in the closet anymore. I don't want everybody maybe people have to get to that point before they transition. You don't want to work for a law firm that doesn't want you. And that's it's better to go out on your own and live with your mom and dad for a while longer.
Here's one thing I would say though, with regard to that thing about the cover letter. Here's what you say. You write the letter and say, I'm applying to you. You mentioned somewhere in the cover letter, and one of the reasons I really want to work here is because I feel like it's a place where I could be safe as an openly LGBT person, and make it sound like where I can feel free to bring my partner with me or something. Just try to spin it in a positive way about them, saying, I know you're going to be accepting of me, and they'll be like, oh, of course we will, and as opposed to going, this person's going to come in and be a trouble, and so.
It's some great advice.
Vicky, that's good, Vicky.
Judge Quinn, I've got a question here from you from one of our legal leaders here in Cook County, Judge Sebastian Patty. He said, do any qualities or experiences of LGBTQ plus folks give us an advantage on the bench? And stated differently, do you think that we might make better judges? And if so, why?
You know, I think that's a fair question. And I think it's, I think it's good to come from the viewpoint of being a member of a marginalized segment of the community. You know what it's like to be in a position where no one wants to hear from you. Everyone wants to pretend you don't exist. And you're able to understand the points of view of lots of people who come before you. I think that's a good point. If outlaws have lots of friends who are different, and different people are just different. They're not wrong.
Thank you, Judge Quinn. Judge Kolakowski, I'll ask this next question of you. It's a couple people kind of asked a similar question. You know, how can allies best support our trans colleagues in the legal field? And what could friends and supporters do to help bring attention to the need for more LGBTQ plus representation on the bench?
Okay, one thing that I think is really important is that the things that, for example, that I've encountered, nobody is bad to my face. It's all behind my back. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that you can do as an ally is to have people's back. When you hear something that's inappropriate, bring it up. Come to somebody's defense. And if you think that somebody is not being treated, for example, is being discounted because of who they are, whatever their characteristics are, that they're being overlooked because of something, be an advocate for them. What you can do being a mentor and being a person for somebody who's in a position, almost everybody who's ever mentored, there are no other trans people around here who can mentor me. I mean, you know, in my local community, it's been mostly straight white men who've been the people who helped me get to where I am, because there are a lot of nice ones who are they have power. And so, you know, help support and promote people, give assignments to, speak for, mentor, make recommendations about, say nice things about people behind their backs. You're in the room where it happens, even if we're not. And so you who are in positions where you have some privilege or power can use it to help expand things just by little things like giving somebody an assignment, saying something nice about somebody behind their back. If somebody says some disparaging little thing, swat it down, that kind of stuff. You'd be amazed at how powerful allies can be.
So I've got another question, and it's kind of for the entire group. So you know, as the first 4 transgender judges, what are your hopes for the next generation of transgender judges? Or are you guys good with just 4? You know, and it's just sort of like, and how do we push our society forward? And even, frankly, I'll add to that question, how do we push our LGBTQ plus community forward in promoting transgender folks to the bench?
Well, what we need is, in addition to having 4 sisters up here, we need 4 more brothers up here. There's no reason why we can't have 4 trans men on the bench. And there's no reason why all 8 of us would have to be white. As for instance, Kyler Broadus, a very well-known trans man, person of color, attorney in the country, some governor or mayor should grab hold of him and put him on the bench. He would be dynamite. I know there's a lot of people of color, be they Black, brown, Asian Pacific Island, indigenous, who should be on the bench. But let's get some trans men appointed or elected. Guys, y'all are out there, run.
Well, I've been pushing quietly behind the scenes for appointment of some I've been one trans man in particular here in California, who really should be a slam dunk candidate for appointment to fill a vacancy, and has not gotten anywhere with it. And a bunch of us are pushing hard to try to break whatever logjam is there. We had a trans guy run for judge in Philadelphia with the support of the entire establishment, didn't make it. And so it's like we need to have all sorts of people. I mean, you don't have to be, a beautiful woman, a beautiful white woman, trans woman to be a trans judge. You can be like, ordinary people. All sorts of people. I'm trying to flatter my colleagues. They're all much prettier than me. But.
Well, we're all gorgeous, Vicki. We know that.
Gia, I saw that you might have a comment about this as well.
So yeah, just a couple things. I mean, we're asked because we don't run for election to the bench here, and we are always asked every time our presiding judge opens up the applications. We're always asked, go out to the people who you think are well qualified and encourage them to apply. So it's a matter, and even if you're in a system where you do elections, I think it is a matter of going out and identifying those people who you would think are highly qualified, who come from the LGBTQIA community, and encourage them to pursue this. And for everybody that's out there who is interested in sitting on the bench, let me tell you, this is the greatest position that you possibly can have. It is so fulfilling. It is amazing. And if anybody out there, and I don't care how you identify, if you are interested in wanting to know how to make the next step or what it's like or whatever, reach out to one of us. I guarantee you, all of us will make time for you because we want you in the courtroom next to us. I promise you that. We will make time for you as we go out and try to recruit you. Please reach out to us.
Yeah, I would echo that. And if you look at the shoulders of each of these women, you will see my footprints. I stood on their shoulders, and I offer my shoulders to everyone to help in any way I can. Advice, a word of encouragement, a cup of coffee. And again, I think we, in attending the LGBT Bar Association convention every year, I see more and more trans lawyers. We need to reach out to those folks and encourage them, just as I was encouraged. And someday someone isn't going to run and say, "I'm the first openly." They can run just as who they are.
But you don't get to this point in your careers without having made it through a whole bunch of other hoops first. So we're always needing to work on and developing the farm system. I try to mentor people from the law student on up. And so I'm always welcome to talk to people, but it's not an easy process, and there's a lot of politics behind the scenes to a lot of stuff, but there are people who are willing to work with you. I know I am. And one of the things that we are fortunate about is that we have 4 people here who are not the sort of people who just, they say, "Oh, well, you're the first trans judge in this place." And I'm like, "Yep, bye." And that's the last you ever see of them. This is a group of people where all of us really wanting to work with people so that it's like you can't fit all of us on the screen at the same time.
Well, Judge Quinn, before I close out this session, I'll give you the last word to maybe thank some of our esteemed guests for coming today. And thank you, Judge Quinn, for helping us put this together.
It was my great honor and privilege to put together these other champions. And I'm really glad. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I also want to say that I am really encouraged and really pleased and really thrilled by LAGBAC's name change to LAGBAC, an LGBTQ plus Bar Association. When I first came to LAGBAC, I was the only person who was trans who was in the association, I think. And I asked why there weren't more. They said that, well, we don't know who's trans in our organization. I said, well, with a name like LAGBAC, maybe you're not going to get a lot more. So now I think this opens up to everybody, and I'm really thrilled, and I'm really glad that we've taken the bull by the horns and done that. I'd also like to thank the Alliance of Illinois Judges for their support. Again, every minute from now is the future, and it's going to be great.
Thank you, Judge Quinn. Thank you, Judge Fry. Thank you, Judge Najia. Thank you, Judge Kolakowski. It has been an absolute pleasure. And on behalf of LAGBAC, Chicago's LGBTQ+ Bar Association, we thank you for coming here today. I'd also like to thank the Honorable Levander Smith Jr. for moderating today. Thank you so much for coming here. And make sure to check us out at lagbac.org. If you do have questions that we didn't get to, or you want to reach out to one of us, please shoot us an email at info@lagbac.org or log on to our website, and there should be a way for you to be able to communicate with us directly. Again, on behalf of LAGBAC, Chicago's LGBTQ Bar Association, thank you everybody who was able to attend today. We so appreciate your support, and we hope to see you again live one day in the near future. But for now, a virtual goodbye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
And
you.
for everybody showing
Bye.
up, such a large attendance.